Thank you very much for listening through our presentation. We're going to go on to the commercial section now. I have with me my colleague Adam, who you heard during the presentation, and also John Williams, who will be taking the questions. I'm going to start just by asking Adam just to reintroduce himself. Adam.
Morning everyone, Adam Sanford. I'm the category lead for SCF for Hampshire County Council, so cover the operations in South Eastern London, as said earlier. Thanks, Kingsley.
And over to you, John.
Hello, good morning. I'm John Williams. I'm the Deputy Framework Lead, and I sort of mainly cover the Southwest, but I'm part of the governance board for SCF and involved in some of the higher level strategy. So, yeah, thank you, Kingsley.
Thank you both. So I'm going to pick up some of the questions that I can answer very quickly to start with, and then I'll hand some back to Adam and John as we're going. So one of the common questions that you probably expect we see is, will the presentation be available after the event? Yes, it will be, and a recording of this Q&A will also be published on the website. Some of the very easy questions to answer, and apologies for looking down when I'm talking, I have to control some of this from my phone at the same time. So which form of contract will likely be used? In terms of the framework agreement, that is a bespoke contract which will be published with the ITT. In terms of underlying construction contracts, which I suspect is where the question is aimed at, typically we see NEC or JCT being used, but clients are free to be able to choose the form of contract that they wish. That would be advised during a mini competition process. The next question is probably around commercial. So how can we price design fees for multiple types of projects and levels of service that may be required? Ultimately, what we're asking you to price at the framework stage is a cap. So we're asking you to give yourselves a limit to which you can work to encounter for all variants of projects. Ultimately then at mini competition stage during this framework, you'll be given the opportunity to reduce those to be competitive on a project by project basis. But that's the reason why we are stressing the need that these are caps, and they're not necessarily that you won't necessarily always be bidding up to your cap. In terms of the next question, so will the commercial model scored from lowest cost or based on a median scoring system? The graph that we put up, and so if you missed that graph, just going back and looking at that section of the presentation again, ultimately we will be publishing at the start of the ITT what a 100% score will look like, and then there will be a published glide path to indicate where your score will vary down to the 50% lowest score number for your score. So effectively, it's not a median system, it's not a lowest cost system, it is a published glide path of scores based on the bids that you get. Will there be scenario-based questions? Yes, these will be part of the quality questions, and again, they will be published with the ITT. As you said, there'll be 6 of those at the current process. Another question here around the evaluation of the commercial section. I think I have now covered that. So just to be clear, there is a glide path which will be published, and that will basically advise you what your commercial score will be. And there will also be a technical question which asks you to explain how the rates that you've bid are sustainable. I'm going to hand over to Adam just to pick up a few of the next load of questions, if that's okay. So 1 second. Adam, can I perhaps start you off with will different responses be required for each lot or the same?
There's an opportunity to put different commercial rates in for every region and every separate lot, so the pricing can be tailored to the geographical region. All of the larger values, i.e. all of the lots in the southeastern London and the southwest, will share common quality questions. However, the lower lots will have questions that are tailored towards that level of work, so it's the smaller projects. But the main higher value lots will all share a quality question deck, and the commercials will be identical, but there's an opportunity to submit different rates for each geography.
Thank you, Adam. And then the next one, do you anticipate any decarbonisation estate programmes?
That's something we're working on in all regions on the consult framework. So we do anticipate delivering that type of work. So we are working to secure that type of work through our existing consultant arrangements, as and when appropriately sized refurbishment and decarbonisation projects arise from those consult appointments.
Thank you. Will we be expecting project case studies to be submitted?
There won't be a requirement to submit case studies as part of the quality element of the project, but they may well be required in the selection questionnaire, but they won't be marked as part of the quality submission.
Thank you. And do we expect cladding? Sorry, I've highlighted. So does the framework include elements of maintenance, or is it purely for new build and refurbishment?
It is possible to pick up maintenance work. It's not specifically set up to deliver maintenance, but we do have a reasonable minority of refurbishment work, and maintenance could be part of that. But it's not the core business model for the framework, and would need to fit the financial and business capabilities of the suppliers. But there's certainly nothing to prevent maintenance programs being let on the framework with the agreement of the suppliers.
Thank you, Adam. John, I'm going to hand a couple of questions over to you, if I may, please. So can I start with how we'll be testing contractors' past experience, and whether this will be through an SQ element, and will it be a requirement for regional experience?
Yeah, it's entirely the SQ that will be dealing with past experience. The quality questions will all be forward-looking. There will be some questions relating to capability and experience, but there isn't a heavy requirement in the SQ to cover those things off. Clearly, we need people who are capable of doing projects at the level and scale of what the framework needs, but the level and scale will be appropriate to the lot sizes as well.
And just kind of a follow-up, there was a question around whether or not case studies will be required, and what would be the number and scope of those if they are required as part of the tender.
Well, as we said, there's some short SQ questions that require a certain amount of coverage of some experience, but there isn't going to be a need for, if you like, full-blown case studies like we've had in some previous generations of the framework. So I don't think people need to start stacking up loads of case studies in preparation for the procurement exercise.
Thank you. And a couple of quick technical ones, if I can. Is there a minimum turnover requirement for the framework?
Yeah, there's two minimum turnover requirements. So to be on the higher value lots, it'll be 30 million. To be on the lower value lots, it'll be 10 million.
Thank you. And will the SQ and ITT be issued separately or combined?
No, this is an open tender, so basically the SQ and the ITT go out at the same time, and they've both got to be completed and submitted together. If it was a restricted tender, that would be different, but this is open, so it's all one exercise. But I don't think people are generally going to find the SQ difficult to submit. You know, it's fairly standard questions, and it isn't a very demanding SQ, I would suggest. I mean, some people may find it more demanding than others, but it doesn't require vast amounts of input, put it that way.
Thank you. And what is your opinion, or the SCF opinion, I suspect, on the suitability of this framework for SMEs?
Well, the definition of SMEs, as we know, is, you know, companies that employ less than 250 employees. We've certainly had SMEs on the framework in the past, and I think certainly for the lower value lots in the southwest, then, you know, a number of those companies are going to fall within SME definitions. So yeah, I mean, we're very much hoping that businesses who will be SMEs will come forward and, you know, have got a decent shout to join the framework. If I pick up the question below, are there genuine places for regional contractors on the SCF framework? I would say absolutely yes. I mean, we've reframed the way we're delivering the southwest lot. So we, as you've seen in the presentation, are looking for contractors to on the lower value cover projects between 1 and 5 million, and I think regional contractors are very well able to service that and will be very well placed to do that. I think you know, the SCF model in the past, we perhaps haven't had the level of competition at the £1 to £5 million that we would have liked in the southwest region, and, you know, we very much hope that regional contractors will come forward to, you know, to bid in that lot sector. So
thank you, John. I'm just going to take a couple of these myself. So there's some questions around why the new SCF, the southwest has got the lower value by being split into the low and higher, and the southeast does not. Ultimately, in the southeast, there are already lower value frameworks in place, and effectively those are being dealt with by other means, both Hampshire, and I'll hand over to Adam, who can perhaps pick up a little bit of that in a second. The southwest, as part of SCF, has always furnished those lower values, and we're splitting it because historically the southeast and London had a £4 or £5 million lower value limit. Southwest has had a 2 million, so we're creating that new part of the market within the SCF offer. Adam, can I hand over to you in case you want to pick up any extra bits in relation to that?
Yes, please do. I just wanted to highlight there that Hampshire, outside of the SCF banner, does run intermediate value and lower value frameworks for Hampshire and surrounding counties, and there are other offerings that pick up the smaller value work. So although nobody who meets the minimum turnover requirements would be prevented from bidding and securing a space on SCF, there are other more appropriate vehicles, and as you're registered on Intend to receive this notification for this event, then those lower value frameworks are published using the same process and tendering portal. So you should be notified of those in due course, as per whatever trackers or criteria you've set.
Thanks, Adam. Can I just hand a couple more over to you? So can I just start a question from Samantha from Co-Train. So thinking about the legacy pillar, how will SCF5 drive local apprenticeships through the framework contractors, and what contractual obligations will be set, if any?
So as in previous generations of the framework, there'll be an underlying requirement for apprentices as part of the framework obligations, and then additional project-based targeted apprenticeships based on the CITB client-based approach. In addition to that, we are tracking overall social legacy using our legacy tool and KPI, and clients may well choose to add additional requirements into their projects and programs via the mini competition process, which can be evaluated on bespoke terms as per the need of the client or the project.
Thank you. A couple of other ones. So will we be setting up a separate fit out and refurbishment contractor framework to enable local SMEs to benefit from this workload?
We have no plans for a separate framework as it stands, and there's nothing to prevent those works being let through SCF, but it's not something we would specifically rule out in the future if the workload lent itself to that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to pick up a couple myself. So there's a question from Keith regarding confirming. So please confirm the 25k is paid on both the lower and upper lot, and if we apply and accept it to both, do we pay 50k per annum? Effectively, the rates that we put in the presentation are on a per lot basis. The lower lot rates are, so the lower lot in the southwest are 5k per annum, and the higher lots are priced at 25k per annum, and you would pay those across all of the lots to which you are appointed effectively. So if you were appointed to the southwest, the southeast and London, all of the upper value lots, that is 75k per annum, for example. If you were only appointed to one of the southwest lower value lots, that would be 5k per annum. We've been asked if will the commercial model percentages be required for each lot, and could they be variable? Yes, you will be able to submit a different commercial percentage for each lot to which you apply. There is another couple of quick questions. So will there be a limit to the number of contractors appointed to each lot? Yes, there will. For the southwest lower value lots, there will be up to 6 contractors appointed per lot. For the upper value in the southwest, up to 10, and for the southeast and London lots, there will be up to 8 appointed on those lots. It's worth saying the only caveat to that are things like tie breaks. If there is a kind of a dead heat or things, there might in some cases be a need to allow extras on, but that is the intention. So will the pricing of items such as design fees be against model projects to give clarity as to the scope of service? No, we are effectively giving you a very high level overview of the type of projects that SCF can, and we're looking for not to exceed rates. So we're not looking for you to create a rate for a bespoke project. It is to be able to encounter the full range of SCF projects, etc. So do we believe that pure fit out and refurbish companies have an equal opportunity to be successful in the framework? I think it's fair to say, as we've outlined, we are looking for contractors that are able to cover the breadth of the services and projects that SCF have. So whilst you might be able to pick up some, you clearly wouldn't be able to pick up the full breadth of SCF projects. So I'd advise you have a look at the ITT, make sure that you satisfy yourself as to whether or not you're going to be able to fulfil the needs that we have within the framework agreement. I'm just going to hand back to Adam. Adam, if I can start, if you can pick up around the variable rates that you've discussed.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasise, as Kingsley said, the rates that are bid at the framework are not to exceed rates. We have some highly complex, multifaceted projects with high demand stakeholders. So those rates, not based on any particular project, but they need to be able to cover the entire breadth and the highest complexity. They will be able to be rebid competitively at mini competition for simpler projects or faster turnaround projects. But just to emphasise that you will need to make sure you have sufficient headroom to cover the most complex of projects. And I think just to pick up on the refurbishment and fit out side of things, I think it would be difficult to satisfy all of the requirements of the framework. As Kingsley said, we need people who can cover the entire breadth of project type as well as geography. But that does we do not prevent anyone from putting together joint venture bids or consortia bids. That will be outlined in the selection questionnaire. But if you are from a specialist supplier that has a narrower breadth than SCF, then you may wish to consider looking at a partnership or consortia approach so that you can cover the entire range of SCF projects.
And while you're there, Adam, can I just ask you to address the question around, so the scoring mechanism is appearing to promote a race to the bottom approach. Will we be giving this some further thought? I might want to add a few bits as well, depending on.
Yeah, well, firstly, I think we fully acknowledge the race to the bottom and want to actively work to promote sustainable rates. which is why we're putting so much thought and care into the mechanism by which we award commercial points, but that we are also bound by public contract regulations and to build a robust procurement that our clients trust. So we are working hard to ensure that we promote sustainable rates, but that we also retain the competitive tension required by the regulations and by our clients to satisfy their compliance teams for every call off. So yes, it's a difficult balance, but we are working to ensure that we have a sustainable commercial model, and that there is sufficient headroom to bid sustainable rates, and hence to operate with the transparency that we require on every call off.
Thank you. And in terms of the project management and delivery fees, do they include prelims?
There'll be a section for construction fee, which is in essence the staff part of the prelims. So works prelims specific to each project, temporary work, site, cabins, fencing, etc. will not be included. So that element of the prelims is not. However, all of the main contractors' construction staff required for the delivery of the project during construction will be bid as part of that.
Thank you. And with the tender, will we be pricing a template construction project of similar value to lots as with previous bids?
We are not intending to include model schools this time round. We're taking a different approach to the rates, as Kingsley mentioned before. We are asking for the fees to be bid, and then we are requiring a little bit more information as to how those bids are put together and how they are sustainably delivered. But there will not be, as far as we currently plan, there will not be sample projects to price or any construction works pricing in the main ITT bid.
Thank you, Adam. I'll take a couple myself again. So in terms of a few questions around pipelines, so someone might have missed it. I think you might have missed one of the slides, but is there a projected pipeline for various projects and sectors? Recently, there have been a number of frameworks where no projects materialised. I think the first thing to say is we can't sit here today and publish you a pipeline over the next 4 years. That's not only incredibly difficult to do because clients will change projects about, but also in some ways we're not at liberty to talk about specific clients with projects coming up to the wider market. That being said, SCF has been around now for 15 odd years. Before COVID, we were turning over in excess of 600 million per annum. That has dipped, but we are optimistic that it's going to come back. We share our whole pipeline with all of the contractors to which we're appointed. And frankly, as a framework, we can't operate without a pipeline. It just wouldn't be sustainable for us as hosts. So we are equally in it to bring pipeline to the framework, and have been incredibly successful doing that over the last 15 years. In terms of which procurement portal, so I'm going to pick up a few technical ones. Which procurement portal will the SQ and ITT be published on? That, as per the PIN, will be on Hampshire's Intend portal. The link to which is on our website. It's within the presentation as well. There was a follow-on question around 6 weeks, including 3 weeks over the summer holidays is a short period. Could this be reviewed? I'm just looking at colleagues in case I've got it wrong. I'm pretty confident we have got at least 8 weeks in the programme for the ITT. So I think you might have done the maths slightly wrong in terms of that, but we are very mindful of the requirements that are being put on you during bidding. We do appreciate some of the tender is within the summer holidays, but that's one of the reasons why we tried to give a sensible amount of time. So take a look at the slides again. By all means, if you have any concerns, you can raise those via the Hampshire Intend portal with us as things progress. We've got a follow-on question around kind of finances. In reality, how will we overcome the challenge where clients require the lowest price as their evaluation criteria? We do everything we can to speak with and talk to our clients around sustainable rates and the requirements for those. And what we're trying to do is ensure that we have a fully transparent process, so our clients are more satisfied that they can accept the kind of sustainable rates as part of the bids. It's something we are working on, and we will continue to work on as we're going through. Question around whether there be a requirement for regional experience in the SQ. John picked this up in terms of case studies, etc. We are expecting you to be able to cover the full breadth, but ultimately we're not looking for case studies. We're not intending to look for case studies as part of the bid. What method of valuation will be used and the split. So we've outlined how we will be assessing the commercial response, and we've also then effectively given an idea of what those percentages will be. So 20% of the weighting will be towards the commercial element but of that 20%, some of that will be a technical question relating to whether or not the rate that you have bid is actually sustainable. And that does also pick up on some of the questions that we've had around sustainability of rates and lowest price wins, etc. We're doing everything we can to try and make certain that we are clear that the rates will be sustainable. In terms of who will be evaluating the bid, that will be a mixed pool of various people within Hampshire County Council, Devon County Council, and our partners. We don't publish in advance the specific individuals that will be evaluating each question, but it will be a varied pool of staff with various skills, etc. Previous iterations of the framework appear to have favoured national contractors, and is there a desire within SCF to see more regional contractors? Ultimately, we are looking for people that can deliver on a per lot basis. So we're not favouring, or we do not want to favour a contractor that can cover all, let's say, all 5 of the various lots of the 2 lower value in the southwest and the 3 upper value southwest, southeast and London. We're not favouring that over a contractor or a bidder that can only service one of those areas. In fact, quite the reverse. We're very happy to receive bids from people that can cover all, one, or any combination and permutation of that. So I suppose clearly the southwest, we have split the existing value band. That naturally will probably favour some more regional contractors. Obviously Hampshire have their alternative arrangements to deal with that within those areas as well. We've got some question around inflationary pressures and how the framework would deal with inflationary clauses, etc. So the first thing to say is all of our rates and the framework rates that you're bidding are percentages. So ultimately, if the price of materials, the price of subcontracts are going up, that would be reflected because ultimately it is a percentage. We're not asking you to fix a pound sign. So that's probably the first thing to say in terms of how we are dealing with kind of not to exceed rates. In terms of how we're dealing with that project by project and the kind of clauses that clients are putting into contracts, ultimately those are things that we are working on an individual basis. So where clients have specific needs for contractual clauses, we will work to try and assist both client and contractor bringing that in. It's also worth saying that we do produce a market intelligence report. You can see those on our website. Successful contractors will contribute to that, and that's again another way that we are trying to help advise clients, etc., on what to do. John, can I hand back a few questions to you, if I may? So the first is, the value band is still very broad, and did we give consideration to a major works lot in the southwest?
The answer is yes, we have considered it very hard, but it does create a number of complexities, and it was the sort of unexpected consequences when we thought about that quite hard. So we have decided to just go with the 2 value bands, the lower value and what we've had in the past. We have actively considered it, and we think there are a number of disadvantages and knock-on effects of doing that, and that's why we've decided not to do it.
Thank you. So the next question around commercials again. So the suggestion is we effectively price worst case fees prelims design. How does this deliver best value to SCF clients in a crowded framework market?
So, I mean, we've got some interesting sort of dynamics here. We are trying very hard in terms of the way we're putting the commercial model out with this to avoid the race to the bottom. And I think when you see the commercial model, you will sort of get a bit more appreciation of how it's working, because what's being presented today is a very, if you like, stylized view. So in terms of the framework commercials, as has been said a number of times, it's worst. Sorry, it's not worst. It is basically not to exceed figures to allow for you to do a range of products. Ultimately, the best value for clients is delivered in the mini competition stage, where people can put rates in appropriate to that specific project. And very much we see that there is a lot of competition at mini competition stage to get that commercial offer right. And I think we have a model that is sustainable, and we have a lot of repeat clients coming back to the framework because they do like the way it works and the way the mini competition process provides competitive tension. So I think that's the answer to that one, Kingsley.
Thank you. Contractors in the main are unable to provide fixed price tenders for any length of time. How are we factoring this in?
I mean, it's very project specific at the moment, and but basically people are working hard to make sure that there's either inflationary mechanisms or there are mechanisms that allow for some variability, or there has to be risk allowances in the project. I mean, it's very much on a project by project basis, and the SCF team are working very hard with clients to make sure that there isn't a one size fits all. Not all clients are demanding a fixed price, and a number of clients are prepared to be reasonable in terms of how they want to approach things. If somebody absolutely wants a fixed price, then on occasions that may be required, but there's obviously going to have to be allowances put into the bid to deal with that.
Thanks, John. I think Adam just wants to add something to that bit. So,
yeah, thanks, Kingsley. Thanks, John. I just wanted to reiterate that we operate as a two-stage open book only framework for very specific reasons. We allow sustainable and transparent bid of the main contractor's fee. I think you may have all noticed that we've been both asked how we keep those rates sustainably high, but how we also demonstrate that they are competitively low. I think that's very much sums up the balance of what we try to achieve with our model. We will look to strike the best balance between those, but also with fixed price tenders, with inflationary indices. All of these things are most effectively dealt with in the second stage in a two-stage open book project, and that's why we dedicate so much resource and effort towards that second stage and our supply chain management. So really the value add for the majority of the project is added during that pre-construction phase as the package procurement is carried out. Most of those conversations about fixed price tenders, inflation, and really teasing out the best value of a project and the best outcomes is done in that second stage, and ever more so with the volatility of the market, which is indicated in our market intelligence reporting. That's where we expect our main contractors to really add value, is to interrogate those packages, ensure the right supply chain are allocated to the project, and to demonstrate transparency and best value using the digital tools and the framework management team's support in pre-construction. So a lot of those concerns about the right commercial model, sustainable rates, and still the best value project can be demonstrated using the SCF pre-construction process, so that by the time those contracts are signed and the construction starts on site, a lot of those concerns that you're outlining there will have been really thoroughly dealt with, and the entire client team will have had a chance to understand to de-risk and to choose the best way forward. So I think really that picks up many facets of different questions here around the commercial model. Is that we just need to make sure that we have sufficiently sustainable rates that can then be tailored for every project, and then transparency demonstrated moving forward with each project once they're allocated.
Thanks, Adam. Can I just ask you to pick up a couple of other quick bits, I think? So in terms of the commercial rates again, are we considering any alternative management resources or percentages for different forms of contracts? So I think basically, are we asking for different rates for JCT and NEC, for example?
Your single bid rate should cover any and all of the JCT and NEC forms of contract. We have in the past asked for separate rates for JCT and NEC, and I think in the vast majority of cases that was bid as the same not to exceed rate. So we've taken the decision to simplify and to use one rate, and that one rate should be suitable for any form of contract. And I think looking just jumping straight down to the next question there in terms of construction management, that is not something that is prevented using the SCF model. I think as the wider SCF group, we have other routes to market for construction management, but there is no bar on any type of NEC contract on the main construct framework. So we would seek to find a solution that allowed any route through an NEC contract.
Thank you, Adam. There's another question that I've got, which is what is the procurement scope? I'm drawing a blank, but if you know what that might mean, Adam, go for it.
No, I think we'd have to seek clarification as to exactly what that attendee wants to hear from us. I'm afraid.
John, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, the scope of this procurement is clearly to provide a construction framework and to allow for, projects of, through from a million upwards, and on the this was covered earlier, but I mean, we have the capability of delivering projects, right up to couple of 100 million, and we have done projects over a couple of 100 million in the past. So financially the scope is 1 to 200 million plus, and I think our biggest project so far has been over 250 million. I think this scope is clearly to provide construction sector services, so I think that's the scope from my reading.
If that didn't address the question from anybody, if I can ask you just to jump back and let us know. Because there's been quite a few questions around the commercial model, I'm just going to put the commercial model on the screen again. There's some questions in here around constructing playbook, and the gold standard promotes sufficient and realistic rates, and assertion that our approach isn't going to allow for it, as well as some other questions. So just to really pick this up, the graph here is representing how we will be evaluating the commercial rate, or how we intend to evaluate the commercial rates. What we've said in the presentation is the hatched area that is on that graph will be determined as an unfeasibly low bid, and we will publish where the top of that graph will start as part of the tender. We are intending, as part of this, to make certain that our rates are realistic and sufficient and sustainable by effectively setting that number at the start of the process. I can't sit here and tell you exactly what that number is today. That work is still ongoing, and also we need to wait until the ITT before we publish that number. But in terms of making sure we don't have a complete race to the bottom, in terms of making sure that rates are sustainable, that's why we've opted for this model. And if maybe we've not explained that correctly in the presentation, perhaps that's the case, but the whole point of this is to make certain we are really clear on what a sustainable bid must be. Adam or John, do you want to go on?
Sorry, I think it's worth adding in that a lot of things will become clearer when the detail of this is published in the ITT, and I think rather than inviting further questions on this today, I just suggest that people look at the ITT, because I think it will then fall into place. And we can't give away all of the detail today, but I think when people see the detail of this, that they will, I think, appreciate that it does fall in line with the playbook and other things. So I think I think there will be a lot of clarification when people see the ITT.
Yeah, I think I would just pick up, in addition to what John and Kingsley have both said there, that the lower price on our pricing scale will be based on what we consider to be a should cost range. So that the pricing that we will be marking against, although lowest price wins to an extent, we believe it's in line with the playbook and current guidance, because we will be inviting only what we think are sustainable models. So we will publish ranges of percentages to score from, and they will be all within the realms of what we consider to be a correct should cost model range. And I think just picking up on there was another question around inflation. Those percentages are based on the net construction cost. And I think recently we've seen that construction cost and construction materials cost has outpaced the cost of construction management services. So we consider that percentage rate based on the construction value is an appropriate cap throughout the life of the framework, and hence we don't use any particular inflation indices on that percentage. And through previous generations of the framework, we found that has been a broadly consistent and successful approach.
Thanks for that. I think that picks up 2 points, and so if you can just provide a little bit of extra clarity in terms of people being expected to predict what will happen in the next 4 years, how would you kind of answer that in terms of inflation?
Well, an integral part of the pre-construction process is risk management, and inflation is one of those key risks. So the duties and outputs of the framework in pre-construction and in construction are defined in the tender and are broadly consistent across the projects, but the project specific risks and attendances and allowances are priced throughout the pre-construction service with the client, so can be tailored to each project. So we will not expect anyone to take on an unfair burden. We want those risks to be apportioned transparently to the party most appropriate to hold them, and inflation is certainly one of the risks that we've been seeing. So where those fixed prices and risks sit will be agreed either during the mini competition or post mini competition and before the main construction phase starts, and that always has been and always will be, to our best endeavours, a key part of the process that gives our clients the cost and time predictability on site and during construction that they need.
Thank you, Adam. Adam, while you're there, can you just outline the mechanism that's used to set individual project budgets against which contractors will be expected to bid, and how will you ensure this is comprehensive?
Well, the individual project budgets will be brought to the framework by the client and their cost management team, or any at any stage of a project from stage 0 to stage 4 when it enters the framework. And one of the first key activities in the defined framework duties is to interrogate and agree a joint cost plan. So all suppliers get opportunity to work to improve the initial benchmark. And in addition to this, in early mini competition part 1, all suppliers will be obliged to give anonymous feedback on what they think the sustainability of the cost plan is, so that during that mini competition process, clients get feedback without prejudice and without knowing who said what against their project budget, so they can work to bring a more sustainable budget or realistic expectations of outcomes through the mini competition process.
Thanks, Adam. So just because we are almost running out of time, so I'm going to very shortly close the questions, and we'll pick up the ones that remain. It's about 5 or 6. After which, if you do have additional questions, they'll need to just be submitted via the pin and etc. But I think we've probably covered the bulk of your questions. But just to go back then to the questions that have already been asked, John, can I just hand over to you for a couple of what I think are fairly quick ones? For absolute clarity, will there be a specific requirement of past regional experience, or can contractors demonstrate how they can deliver across regions?
In a limited way, that will be required. People are not going to have to do a heavy response on this, and indeed our procurement, if you like, limitations through the public contract supply regs don't allow us to push too hard on this, but there will be a limited requirement, but it will be limited.
Thank you. And whilst you're there again, where a contractor has accreditation such as CHAS, Elite, Construction Line, does the ITT take this into account?
Yeah, in terms of the SQ, anybody who has got a safety systems in procurement accreditation, so certainly including CHAS, Construction Line, Achilles, and many others, if you've got that as part of the selection questionnaire process, you don't need to fill in or provide a load of health and safety responses. You effectively will be passported through if you provide your SSIP registration with your particular accreditation company. The ACDC requirement only comes into play once you've been awarded a place on the framework, because ACDC does more than health and safety. As Kingsley explained, it covers insurance and a whole host of other things, but for the purposes of bidding, you can rely on your existing SSIP accreditations.
And just one back onto turnover, John. Contractors have suffering from reduced turnover because of the last 2 years. Will turnover assessments be based on previous year or several years?
I don't know exactly what's written in the question at the moment. I can't remember. I mean, on some tenders, we've allowed turnover to be over multiple years rather than just the previous year. We can take that point on board, and we can make sure that the question allows for the fact that we've had the pandemic, etc. So it's a good point, and we can take that on board in the drafting.
Thank you, John. I'm just going to take the last question that's there. So where will we be getting advice on what is a sustainable commercial return for a contractor? Ultimately, I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly where all of our advice is coming from for all of the various bits of the framework. That would not necessarily be completely appropriate, but it is fair to say we're looking at a large amount of data and a large amount of sources in order to make that determination. And we will be publishing, obviously, what those numbers are within the ITT. So that draws to a close the questions that are there. There is the ability to put feedback from the event via Slido, so just to tell us how you think it went and if you've got any overall comments, so please feel free to do that should you wish. Just for the avoidance of doubt, we won't be replying to specific questions or comments as part of that. That's all of the questions done. I'm just going to quickly hand over to Adam and John in turn in case they've got anything they wish to add. So if I start with yourself, Adam.
Yep, just to reiterate, we're using a diverse range of sources for that commercial model, but it will be published. You will be able to work out what your score is by using the methodology published. So it will be truly transparent, and you'll be able to understand the impact of what your rate is and where you bid it.
Thank you, Adam. And just over to you, John.
Yeah, I'd just like to finally reiterate, in terms of the southwest position, in terms of the lower value lots, we genuinely would like people who haven't perhaps traditionally applied to SCF to get involved, and we think that you've got a lot to add to the framework. I think the framework is going to be a little bit different to SCF4, and we've tried hard to basically learn from experience and continuously improve what we're doing, which is very much a theme of the way we work. So good luck, and look forward for the further advertisements as they come out. look forward to seeing your tenders when they arrive.
Thank you, John. Adam forgot one thing, so just back to you quickly, Adam, before I wrap up.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up that if you have attended today and you think that maybe this framework isn't for you as a main supplier, but you want to be involved in the supply chain, then we will publish a link, but it's on our website. You can register on the LSE portal, and you can see all the live projects and the supply chain opportunities for those. So if you feel that that being a main supplier on the framework is not for you, but you can still be involved, then you can register on the portal and see the opportunities as they come.
Thank you, Adam. So just thank you everybody for sticking with us and coming and joining us today and listening to the presentation. As I said at the outset, we will be putting a copy of the recording and the Q&A onto the website, so you'll be able to access those as you need. We'll make sure we issue a link to all of those that attended today if you need to get to that. As I also said, there is the ability to give some feedback on how this event has gone on Slido, but we're not going to be responding to individual questions there. If you have anything there, you need to do that via the kind of the portal and all of those kind of things to get those questions answered. We really look forward to reading and seeing your bids later in the year, and wish you luck getting through. So from the three of us and the rest of the SCF team, thank you for joining us today, and speak to you soon. Many thanks.
Thanks, everyone.